Sister and brother surfers of the binary ocean. Hello? In this video, we're going to fix a few issues here, and then we've got one more issue that I want to fix with our compile mode in the next video, and then we're done with compile mode, so that'll be fun. In this one, just going to fix a couple things that I left kind of messed up before that I ran into issues with and was like, oh yeah, I should have done that a little differently. And then I want to show you the other two issues here that we're going to fix. So we have our fourth running. When we are in compile mode here, if I have like that, and then let's say I want to exit out of the program, so I put in BYE, and it doesn't happen. I'm like, why isn't this working? What the heck? And then I realize, oh, I'm in compile mode. That's why. Because if I'm in compile mode, then it just puts that in my compiled word. Now that I'm out of compile mode, now it's going to work. So what I want to do, and what gforth, I found gforth does this. When you're not in compile mode, it just gives an OK. If you're in compile mode, it says compiled instead. So we can fix that pretty easily. So that's going to be the first one we fix. And then the other issue I want to fix is when we actually put BYE in a compiled word like this, we want it to actually close the program when it gets to that point, right? So we want it to put 20 on the stack, another 20 on the stack, add those two values together, and then exit forth. And right now, we just get a bunch of stuff that doesn't happen. So we're going to fix all this, make this look a lot nicer, and make it actually close out of forth. So just some cleanup first. This index should be this under the process input function, where we have if index is greater than 1, that we put this in here to fix another problem, but it was actually causing another problem. And so yeah, I just did that wrong. For some reason I was thinking this index started with 1 and it starts with 0. So we just got to make if index is greater than 0 instead of if index is greater than 1. And then to make our codes, our interpreter say compiled, if we're in compiled mode, we just add some if to our while loop here, our main while loop up at the top where we're getting the input with readline. We want to put if return code equals 1 and compile mode or compile flag equals false. Then we want it to print OK because we're not in compile mode. But if we're in compile mode, so else if return code equals 1 and compile flag equals true, then in this case we want to print compiled. Let's try running again and I'll just give you a little quick demonstration of what goes on there. So it says compiled. No matter what we add there, it's just going to say compiled. Until we get out of compile mode, then it goes back to OK. So the next thing we want to fix is that BYE whenever we call BYE keyword from a compiled word, we want it to close out of forth. To do that, to get that set up, we need to go down to our run word function. And instead of returning a Boolean from this function, we're going to return an integer. And then this is kind of part of it, but this is also something that I just messed up before. We are actually running this process input function 3 times in this if else. If it gets down to this, if we return 0, it's going to run it first and say, okay, it didn't return 0. Then it's going to run it again and say, okay, it didn't return 0. And then it's going to run it again. So we don't want that. So we want let return code RW equal, and then we want our process input here. And then if our return code equals 1, or else if our return code equals 2, or if it equals 3 or 0. Okay, so that fixes that issue. Then we still have these statements where we're returning false and true, which are Booleans, and we changed this to integer, so we want to return integers. So if the return code is 1, very simple, we just want to return a 1. The return code is 2, and we can get rid of this print OK as well. We probably don't need this error either, but I like leaving the error stuff in there just because I figure it's better to be redundant than not have enough error messaging when you do have an error. So, but there, return 2, and then return 0 if we're getting the BYE. And the reason we're going to know that's a BYE is because process input is going to return 0 for BYE. So that comes and returns 0 here, and then we return 0 from our run word, which is going to indicate up here that we should break out of this while loop, which ends our program. And then with our run word function, we need to actually handle these handle the integer returns from our run word function up in our process input function. So in our process input function, where we have our dictionary stuff, we have our run word function call. And instead of doing this if statement, we're gonna do basically what we just put in our run word function for running our process input function. Let run word return code equal run word with the word input, and then if the run word return code equals 0, and we'll do one thing, else if equals 1, do something else, else if run word return code equals 2, then we do something else. And then we're going to have one final just kind of catch-all else here. And then if we get a 0 back, we just want to return 0. If we get a 1, we want to return 1. So we're just passing things down the chain, right? Passing that value down, basically. Here we're just going to print error running compiled word. And we're going to return 2. Or if it's else, we're also going to give, so really we could just skip out this 2 and just put a full else right here. But I'm just adding that just in case we do decide later to add more return codes. Then we're going to want those separate. So error running compiled word. And once again, return 2 because that's the error one. And then I believe that covers it for that BYE. Let's try that. Oops, we're still returning true. We can get rid of this true at the very end here because, let's add a full else here. And if it's a full else, we want to once again do the same thing as we did with 2. So it's an error. And the reason we could get rid of that return true after that is because everything we could possibly put into this if statement is going to be caught by it. Either process input's going to return a 1, a 2, a 0, or some other value. So, all right, so now let's try running our program here. And if we go Bob, we got our compiled, that's good. Let's put 2020 plus in our Bob and with a BYE. Now let's try running Bob. And there we go, it closed out of our program. It added 20 to the stack, added 20, added those two together, and then printed it. There's our 40. And then we got our ending crux force message. So that closes it. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we're just going to handle an issue where if we have a compiled word and we want to, say we have Bob and we want to, Bob 2020 plus, and we want to change that to Bob 2030 plus, we're going to be able to do that because it's going to override it. So that'll be in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace out.